Durante los 6 años que he llevado este canal, he logrado recopilar grandes testimonios de la historia del acuarismo. El día de hoy estamos viendo literalmente a una leyenda viviente. Su nombre es Phil Marraccini y es nada más y nada menos que el creador de una famosa especie de pez. Pero dejemos que él mismo nos cuente su historia.
I'm Phil Marraccini, second generation tropical fish farmer at Summerland Tropical Fish Farmer. We're originally from New York. My father was an avid hobbyist up there, and he moved down to Florida, and we started by collecting wild fish in the canals. There were about 5 different kinds down here, and the green sailfin molly was one of them, Fungulus chrysotis, Florida flagfish, mosquito fish, and a few other varieties of killifish and stuff. They were in the canals by the thousands, and we collected them. Our first fish ponds were liners from inside of refrigerators. They were all metal. This is all before plastic. And we would go to the dump and take the liners out of the refrigerators and glue 2 of them together, and those were our first fish farm ponds. Most of the fish farmers at that time were making their ponds out of concrete block and then stuccoing them. But my dad was kind of a very learned guy, and he had read about forming concrete for different septic tanks and different things. So he said, why can't we make forms and pour concrete pools? So he was the first one to pour concrete pools, and he also did that for a few other fish farmers till we got established. Once the concrete pools were up, my dad had a building with probably 210-gallon tanks. He was an artist and he loved colors, so his career was devoted to creating different colors of tropical fish by interbreeding and crossbreeding. And most everybody knows the wild platies, swordtails, and mollies from Mexico, Central America, and so on and so forth. So my dad started doing a magazine called the Ichthyophile, which is also translated as a fish lover's notebook. And I will show a couple, I'll pick a couple out. It might take a second till we get to the ones here. Since the man filming is from Mexico, this is about the bleeding heart platy, which was found in the canals in Mexico. The female is just a greenish color, nothing, but the male had a little bit of red on its thing, so they named it the bleeding heart platy. People took it and eventually kept inbreeding it, found a couple with a dot, a white, and they kept inbreeding those, and eventually they made a white strain with a red heart on it. Only the males have the color, and unfortunately most of the males are little runts. So it is not a commercial fish that a fish farmer can make money with. So most of the fish farmers, you can't find it anymore unless it comes from the Far East, and that's pretty rare. So the Fish Lover's Notebook was made to fold in half. It's perforated with holes in it, and it would go inside a notebook. The stores would distribute it and give it out. And I'm trying to find one other. Swordtails, talking about Mexico again. The common green swordtail had a little bit of a red stripe down it. It wasn't even as pronounced as that. So some people took it, the ones with the most red, they kept inbreeding them, and eventually they developed all these different colors of swordtails. And since then, there are probably another 50 different color varieties. They also found some of them that had a little bit of a second sword on it, and they eventually developed the lyre tail. And then some of them had, once in a while you'd see one that had a little bit of a higher fin, and then they developed the high fin. So now there are strains of high fin lyre tail swords and platies and variatus, and that's how it was developed. It was done mostly in 10-gallon tanks. You would take the babies back and breed them back to the father until you got a better male. So again, the Ichthyophile, I still have some of these in stock here. And basically my dad was a writer. He would write a little short story, a make-believe story, and then he would include in breeding directions or the origin of where the fish is from, and that's what the Ichthyophile was about. My dad also wrote sometimes for the Trader, which was the Florida Tropical Fish Farm Association magazine. That's my dad and I on the cover in 1966. And this is the blue Variatus that my dad, that's artwork, that's not a picture. And he did that, and I want you to notice one thing, the tin can or the metal can. Back in the days when the early fish farmers were around, there was no such thing as plastic. So we were not able to ship fish. Everything was sold locally because we didn't have a way to keep oxygen. So a can like this, you could put 50 fish in there and they probably live about an hour or so before they would die of lack of oxygen. When the plastic bag came out, then it revolutionized the business. We were now able to ship all over the country with water and pure oxygen in the bag inside a corrugated or styrofoam box. And that also opened up the Far East for exporting, because they could produce stuff a lot cheaper there, although the quality is not as good, and I can verify that. I'm going to show you something else. In 1972, this is the Gold Dust Molly when it was first coming out, the top picture. My dad introduced that to the market in 1972, and then he worked for quite a few more years, and he tried and produced a solid gold one. And in about the early 1980s, this is out of the Yucatan molly from the Yucatan Peninsula, has the smaller top fin than the Latapino or the Velafera. It gets about maybe 2.5 inches, not like the sail fins. Eventually, we bred them and we got a solid gold variety. Unfortunately, you cannot get a patent on a color. So we made sure we had 10,000 of them ready to sell, because we knew once we started selling them, other people would be reproducing them. So one night we're sitting down at dinner and we said, hey, we're getting ready to lease these things in the market. What are we going to call them? And we're going back, gold this, gold that, whatever. And then for some reason or another, I thought about jewelry. And I says, what if we called them the 12-karat molly? And then I said, oh no, let's call it the 24-karat molly. And that became the name that we gave to that fish. It is now all over the world. We don't get any royalties, unfortunately. But we've won a lot of trophies with it. And I'm going to show you a picture. We took the Yucatan variety. Let me put it over here where there's a dark background. We took the Yucatan variety and we crossed it with the Latapina variety. And I wound up getting a bunch of, they're almost like mules, like when you cross a donkey with a horse. They're just gigantic. I had some males that were 5-6 inches long. And this is a picture of one of them that we took up to Orlando when the tropical fish farmers used to have competition. And that's a show winner. That's probably from the 80s. And I'm going to show you a couple more things. These are, I'm just going to flip them down here and he can take pictures of them. These are some of the articles my dad wrote for TFH magazine. And here's a, that's when the TFH magazine was like a book, a big book. Now they've modified TFH and it went down to a smaller size. That's when we're talking about the lyre tail mollies when they were first coming out. My dad over there with a tank. And here's some other TFH magazines, but they've got stories my dad are in. I don't know how much you want to go into detail, but I'll just flip them open and find the right page. That again is the gold molly and the 24-karat molly when it was first coming out. Let's see what this one's about. This one is, again, is about the bleeding heart platies and different platies. And this one, I believe, is a 24-karat molly. Hang on one second, just to show you here. Here's the heading of the 24-karat one. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my dad. I told you he was an artist. Never really discovered, but he's a very talented guy. But probably his biggest notoriety was he painted a portrait of Luciano Pavarotti, and we got to meet Luciano Pavarotti. That's my dad and Luciano and the painting my dad did for him.
Wow.
This is stuff you're probably going to edit out. I mean, it's not, you know.
No, it's history.
So that's that. And then when we were meeting Luciano as my family, my dad, my mom, my sister, and myself, I was wearing this particular tie right here. I'll throw it right on top. And Luciano Pavarotti grabs the tie, and he says, I want that tie. I says, you can't have that tie. It's my favorite tie. And we go back and forth, and he's grabbing. I want it. It's the color of my flag in Mundo in Italy. I want the tie. And well, I still have the tie. I never gave it to him. I'm probably the only person ever told the guy no. But so years later, I start writing, and I did write a little story about that, and it's called Choked at the Opera. And it's a comedy about how Luciano was choking me to death. Let me drift. Go here. I don't know how much you want about. Oh, I got to show you that. Everybody knows what that is. Yeah. Before plastic bags, if you went to a Woolworths or a 5 and 10 cent store or a pet store and you wanted to buy a tropical fish, that's what they would pack it in for you. They'd put water in it, close it up, and you go home with your fish with a little wire handle. So just a little bit of history for you young guys. They never really.
These would hold water?
Yeah, they hold water. They're wax lined inside.
Oh, okay.
Well, the old ones were wax lined
okay.
because they didn't have plastic bags. We had nothing like that. I'm going to drift into some of my junk, and then we'll go outside. Oh, another story. When my dad came down from New York, he brought a branch off of a mulberry tree from Staten Island. We planted it on North Kendall Drive, our original farm. When we moved, I dug up the tree. I still have it in the backyard, so it's now 72 years old, this old beat-up tree. And I wrote a poem about it, and this is the poem. It kind of relates the mulberry tree as our family tree. So this has been published in a couple places, and I give you that. Now, as far as me, the fish farm, you're talking 12-hour days and then getting up after a couple hours sleep. This is wholesale, packing fish, going to the airport, coming home and sleeping a couple hours. Hopefully the airlines doesn't forget to put them on the plane, which they've done many, many times. But the business also gave me an opportunity to find a little bit of time to develop my career as a writer. And I've done a couple screenplays, I've done stage productions, all as a hobbyist, and I've published a couple little novelettes here. Some of them are comedies and different things. I've been in the local newspapers and also the Miami Herald with my stuff. And I've been blessed. I have a great wife, great kids, and I was able to find time to pursue whatever I really wanted to. And being able to work out of my own home to go right in the backyard on the fish farm has been a blessing, especially nowadays with the traffic. All right. So we were wholesale all our lives, and in 2010 I started selling koi retail because I was breeding these koi and raising them up. I have ponds next door that are 100 feet long that are not being used right now. So I started growing these big koi. I was selling to the pet stores, but none of them could keep the big koi in the stores because they don't have ponds. So I opened up to the public. I ticked off a guy down the road that sells koi. He was selling for thousands of dollars, and all of a sudden I'm selling for $100. And I could make a profit at that, a big profit. And I thought, hey, I'm fair. And so he's mad at me, and now I got the other guys mad at me. So, and I've never really badmouthed anybody. I guess that's the worst I've done talking to you guys, because I know those people. I know neighborhood for 45 years or however long they've been in business. And we're going to go to the fish farm.
Y así pudimos ser testigos de una maravillosa historia. En el próximo video daremos un tour por toda la granja para poder apreciar las increíbles especies que Phil tiene y que nos pueda compartir un poco más de su pasión por los peces.